So, Inktober is over for another year. In fact, it's been over for about a week, but I was a little bit late to finish, as I was last year. Last year was the first year I'd participated in an Inktober, and I didn't think I'd do it again because it was a real challenge for me. But once the pandemic set in and we were all locked down and all the rest of it, I thought I could make some books to kind of take my mind off the world falling apart. And I ended up making Inktober books for the next 2 years. So yes, I decided I would be participating in Inktober, and it actually gave me something to really look forward to. I finished Inktober about 5 days late this year, because I tend to work on multiple pictures at the same time. So, yeah, I was drawing every day in the spirit of Inktober. However, I was only finishing things, especially at the end, once every couple of days, but I was working on them a little bit at a time, multiple things at the same time. Anyway, I'm sure nobody's particularly interested in that point. So what I've done was I completed an illustration, an ink illustration or picture, drawing, sketch, whatever. I completed one for each day in October in the end, and I've put them all into this book as I did last year. If you'd like to see my book from last year, it's also on my YouTube channel, not far off, since I don't release that many videos. It's pretty easy to find. So I guess I'll just talk about the book itself really quickly. It's a hardback, squishy squashy crocheted edges of pages, and this year I did the pages black with the edges red. I found this beautiful fabric on eBay, I think. I found it very autumnal and perfect for what I was looking for. And then there's this ribbon on the back, which has, it's actually a red ribbon underneath the rhinestones, which has these green oak leaves and acorns sticking out the sides all along it. And then this rhinestone stuff, I know it looks really super sparkly, but it's actually that, I don't know what it's called, but it looks like rhinestones. However, it's just like recesses that are faceted and painted with a bright silver. So there's no actual gems in these, which I didn't even realize for the longest time because they really do sparkle very well. And that's something that I picked up off of AliExpress or something. Originally, I wasn't going to put any rhinestones on it. It looked quite drab, I guess. But I decided that I needed more bling. And it's quite blingy. There's just some little insect. These are like table confetti things that I picked up. And I just put some distress ink on them to make them less white. I've written Inktober in some metallic kind of red to black ink. And there's different layers and fabric. And down here I've got the little plaque. With 2020, I just glued this on because it did come with screws. However, the cover's not really thick enough to accommodate the screws. I thought, oh, I could get tiny screws and it would work. And I just, unless you're seeing things in person, it's so difficult sometimes to find the right thing. And I didn't want to buy the similar things 3 times to get it right. So I just glued it down, and hopefully that's good enough. And it's got these wings on there as well, just to make it a little bit fancier. And that's the book. So we'll get on to the contents. There's also lace on the inside edges, just to make that look a bit more fluffy, I guess, lacy. So yes, I started Inktober on October 1st. I finished on November 5th. 2020, there's my name. And you can see the edges. I say they're crocheted edges, but they're really just chain stitches. I do a blanket stitch around, I do the chain stitches, and the corners are the only parts that are actually crocheted. Those are double crochets on the corners. And then I glue down the corners so they don't flap. And this is day 1, which I thought was a really good summary of how 2020 was going so far at the time. For this year, as I did my Inktober pieces, what was different from last year was I tried really hard to focus more on spending time creating texture with pens. Pens or drawing in pen has never been a strong suit of mine, and it's something that I do enjoy working at. So I've done a lot of experimenting with shading and texture in these pieces, and they've all taken me a long time to complete. I put a lot of effort into this year. So as you can see here, I've just got it held in with photo corners. I found some photo corners on AliExpress which were actually red, so that I just get the little bit of a red accent on the corner of each page, which I thought went really well with obviously the bright red page edges and stitching. And I distressed the edges of all of my pages with some black distress ink just to kind of tie it into the background a bit better. So that's how the whole book came together, and then there's just different pictures, but everything else is the same for the construction. And this is day 2. I wanted to draw spiders that weren't scary spiders, so I was looking at jumping spiders, which are of course the cutest of all spiders. Many people have told me it looks like Lucas, the most famous of jumping spiders, the little animated guy that the creator matches up to a little child's voice, and it's the sweetest thing. So yeah, he had his big eyes, and I thought, this is as much as I drew initially. I thought, what would make him even cuter? And then I made him a little lovey, a little stuffy, just to show he's not scary. He's just a little guy with his stuffy, trying to be all Halloweeny. I was really happy with how this design came out generally, and doing the fur and things. This line here on the bottle just when I draw to the right and I draw to the left, I can make a nice curve, and I didn't realize how bad it was, how melted and not symmetrical it was until after I'd already put the ink down, and by then it was obviously too late, so I just went with it. The good thing about the Inktober stuff is I also have, it's kind of like a book of ideas that I can revisit throughout the next year. Revisit these ideas and maybe make them into bigger or different arrangements in other art pieces. So I'm not counting any screw-ups as failures. This one here is just kind of I was going for hair with the big long legs and the big long ears, and he just kind of ended up in the really, like, I Love You This Much book. The hares have these gorgeous long fingers on their paws, and that's kind of what inspired this. And then I put bat wings on it, of course. And there's a little house in the bottom. I don't know, it just kind of like a were-rabbit type situation. Vampire were-rabbit? I don't know. Anyway, this was a good exercise in fur. I was really pleased with how that came out, because it's a lot of little lines, and my carpal tunnel hands do not enjoy it. There were a few points during the construction of my Inktober drawings that I had to take a break because my hands just cramped up so badly. It was worth it in the end, but it was a lot of work. This one was just, I mean, obviously it's a completely incorrectly structured skull, but it gets the idea across. Just kind of various creepy crawlies and coming together. I think I was thinking of kind of the sugar skull idea, but using nature instead of bright colors and patterns. I'm not sure. And this is a bramble blossom, and down here I have brambles. And yeah, that was just, you know, I don't really approach these with any sort of a plan. I just see what comes out on the paper. That's why I don't use prompts either, because I can find the prompts to be quite stressful. Even if I have great ideas, I just get too fixated on the prompt and I can't like enjoy the creation process. So it's better for me to just look at a blank piece of paper and see what comes out. Here I've got a little gnome. This is just an exercise in mushrooms, I guess. Lots and lots of mushrooms I drew, and he's got a lovely little snail. And then clearly I still had kind of gnome on the brain, except I made kind of a little fairy one. Fairy-ish. And she's got a little mouse. In a lot of these pictures also I went for not only focusing on creating texture and shading, but also more than one character in a drawing. So there's like a primary character and a secondary character in each, well, not each of them, but in many, or at least two focuses for me to bring together and try to make look cohesive. Here we've got a weevil. This is, I did a picture a while ago of a weevil rider, and the rider was actually a beetle, another beetle on the weevil. And this time it turned into a toad. It was going to be a beetle. It was just trying to kind of redraw the same theme, but in this one, and it just ended up becoming a toad. I thought he had quite a cute face. He's got his kind of his bed of fluffy leaves on the back and weevil paws, and this was meant to be like a macaroni because we had a couple problems last year with weevils, and the really tiny ones, and I couldn't figure it out, and they were in a bag of pasta in the back of my pantry. We were just finding them throughout the house. Funny story, my daughter was on the floor one day, and like if she saw a little weevil on the floor, she'd pick it up no problem. And I had, I mean, they're harmless. Not great to have in your pantry, but they're harmless. And one day she was on the floor and she was in this pink fluffy dress, and she starts screaming like she's been lit on fire. The evil, the evil! I'm like, oh my god, that's quite distressing. And she was absolutely hysterical about the evil in the house. She's saying, the evil in the house, the evil in the house. And I said, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And then I worked out that she'd picked up a little weevil, and of course if a weevil is disturbed, it kind of just like sucks in all its little legs and plays dead and drops like a stone. Well, it was in her hand, and it sucked in its little legs, and it dropped like a stone into the ruffles of her dress. And apparently the weevil was fine in her hand, but once it was in her ruffles, that was a problem. So I found the little weevil, we put it outside, and there was no more evil in the house. But it was quite freaky, I have to tell you. Anyway, next picture, just kind of nature-y, I guess. Skulls, I was doing a centipede. This was modeled after a real centipede that I have in resin. So I was using that kind of as a reference. Didn't come out perfect, but I think it gets the point across a bit. Not one of my favorite pieces for Inktober, but it's part of it. And here we have Bun Bun, who I revisit quite often. As I say frequently, if you do follow me in any capacity, you will have seen Bun Bun before. Bun Bun is my daughter's favorite toy. She is a lovey. She doesn't actually have feet, but I usually draw her with feet. And she's just one of those lovely things that has like a head and arms and a flappy bit. And we had actually gone to one of those glamping wigwams for a little retreat It's basically self-catering, so it was easy to stay away from other people and still kind of have a change of scenery during all of this horribleness and pandemic. So anyway, we were camping in October in one of these glamping wigwams, and I just kind of thought that it would be cute to draw Bun Bun with her bag of marshmallows and her little stick. And this is, well, pretty self-explanatory, I guess. I have discussed previously how I struggle with architecture, and I used an actual house as kind of a reference for this. This did not come out of my head, and I fudged a lot of it because my lines were far from perfect. I've had a lot of people say that they really enjoy the concept of this, and I know I've seen it before. It's certainly not my original idea, like nobody's done it before, but I am really happy with how it came out. And it was a real challenge with the pens, doing the shading and trying to get different impressions of texture and all of this. So it was a good one to finish, and I'm pleased that I did it. We'll maybe explore that idea again at another time. And after I spent so long on the previous one because of all those little lines, I thought I'll try and do something a bit easier on my poor hands next. So this is just kind of a moon with some mushrooms, and that wasn't very taxing. And of course I had to include at least one merbat, which are just kind of my little characters that I do. This one is a uni merbat. I think I did one last year as well with a unicorn horn. And in the spirit of trying to create two characters in the same page, I just added a little spider because there wasn't a lot of room to work in a familiar. I don't know, another character that was in a lot of space. But this was also one with a lot of lines and a lot of shading, but I'm really happy with how it came out. She's awfully cute. We were in the wigwam for 3 nights, and I was working through these multiple drawings at the same time, because that's what I do. I cycle through them, add little pieces to one, and then flip to the next one and add a little bit, because that is how I get the best out of my time instead of fixating on one thing. So this drawing, even though we were only there for 3 nights, was born at the same time. I feel like I have to explain it a bit, because as we were in the wigwam, we were actually trying out one of the intro Dungeons and Dragons type scenarios. And my daughter, who is 8, was really, really excited to participate. And when it came time for her to like get into her character and kind of be her character, she absolutely panicked, and she was so scared, and she didn't want to do it, and she was shy. And I said, okay, now I was a little dwarf woman because, I don't know, dwarf is my go-to character. I'm nearly 6 foot tall, and I always gravitate toward dwarves for some reason. So I was a lady dwarf in this scenario, and she was actually a human, I think. But I told her, how about if we just make you my mouse? If you're a mouse, you can be in my pocket, and then you won't be scared. And she was really keen on that idea. I mean, she wants all of her weapons and her everything that goes along with being a human on her character sheet, but we have to say she is a mouse so that she feels confident to proceed. And that's also the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons. It's very much yes and, isn't it? So yes, we made her a mouse, so that is I just drew my character, and then that's her little pocket mouse, who is indeed my daughter. I don't even remember what she named herself. I don't remember what I named myself. But yeah, dwarf and mouse. And then there were these little dragons. I just wanted to make a little clutch of eggs and some little hatchlings. They are not perfect dragons. I've never been very good at drawing dragons, but I do try. And they are cute, so I mean, it's not like a total waste. This is an idea I'd like to revisit, however. This is just something I kind of came up with. I thought it would be a nice, easy exercise. I very much enjoy drawing branches and trees and naked tree silhouettes. And I thought this ended up looking kind of like, almost like a neuron is what it reminds me of. But just this kind of pattern you see in nature, you see in our own bodies, neurons, veins throughout your body, they branch out this way. Lightning in the sky as it's seeking to ground, it very much branches out the same as trees and tree roots. And it's a cool pattern that's created throughout nature, and I just fancied putting it together and seeing what happened. And this obviously doesn't really have a secondary character, it's just got a little moon, but it was an easy one. I guess this one doesn't really have a secondary character either, but I wanted to draw a frog belly. I've painted frog bellies before, but I've never really done it with ink, and it's far from perfect, but after I drew the little frog, I didn't know what else to do, so I kind of just ended up drawing the bottle around him, and then I put little bat wings on the bottle. I thought, that'll work. And it's fine. It was a pretty easy one. And here we've got a toadstool, a little gnome toadstool, sort of, and a little snail. And that was another idea I had that I think I could have carried out and executed better, but it was a good start. It's a good thing to revisit in the future. And then I did a little bit of Pusheen fan art with a nature motif. I've actually put this on a pair of shoes as well, because it kind of fits. I'm not 100% sure I'm ever going to show anybody the shoes, but it was fine. I think like this motif would work better in a bigger picture as well, with lots of other things around it instead of just stopping it just here. I think I would like to explore that more in the future as well. And here is another little plague doctor on top of his toilet roll with his little candle. Oh, yeah. I think there's 3 of them in here. This right here came about as I was speaking to my daughter's friends' parents about various things, and the subject of an art installment, micro sculpture, came up, and they were telling me about this great art installment they saw at the gardens in Edinburgh. And I was really quite jealous because it apparently came around last year, and I had no idea. But this guy just took thousands of images of macro images of insects, dead insects, and he put them all together to create these enormous pictures, composed of multiple little pictures to get every little hair. So if you visit the website, and I will put it in the description area of this post, if you're interested in seeing these photos, they're absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful. If you go to the website, you can zoom in and you can see every little hair on these beautiful insects. This was after a orchid cuckoo bee, I think. It didn't have the sting. I added the sting. I don't know why I added the sting. I wanted to add the sting. So I just was looking at these insects on the website and using them as drawing references. My versions, of course, are far from perfect, but it was a good way to kind of experiment with various kinds of texture with the pens. I have a mommy and a child merbat here. I thought that would be interesting because I've never really, well, I have sketched them, but I've not like publicly kind of released on Instagram or anything pictures of multiple merbats in the same picture, so I thought that could be quite good. All of these are also on Instagram if you'd like to look at them closer. I'll link to my Instagram below as well. I don't post on YouTube very frequently, but I do post on Instagram fairly regularly. This was another bug from the micro sculpture page. It's a darkling beetle, I think. Again, my version is very basic. If you go onto the website, you'll see the absolutely exquisite photo of this beautiful creature. And this is the third, I think. Oh, pardon me, I had to move my leg because my foot has lost all sensation because I'm filming this on my bed. Yes, so this is the third plague mask kind of creature. I thought it was a little bit like the cryptid Mothman thing as well. It just reminded me of it. And I put a moth at the top as well. And yeah, this one doesn't have, it was just a doodle that kept evolving until it became this. Bit wraithy, this one. And here we have a salamander. I was just experimenting with some white gel pens for this. I'm not 100% sure how much I enjoy like drawing with the white gel pens because they are quite, well, they're a law unto themselves. They're thick, and I like to draw on a small scale and with fine lines, and it's a bit of a challenge, but it's just learning a new medium, really. And it did come out pretty cool with the white gel pen, so this could also be something I visit in the future. White gel pens are amazing for touch-ups and for adding white into like watercolors, or I use the Arteza brush pens quite a lot, which is like faking at watercolors, and white gel pens are absolutely wonderful for adding highlights and things like that to those kinds of drawings, but I've never just tried drawing with them before, so that's what that was. This is, well, when I drew this, I was actually back at a wigwam. We did 2 wigwams in October, after doing nothing for like a year. And so these I couldn't figure out what to draw. I was just like really racking my brain. I had these 2 pumpkins on the page, and then these little like scarecrow babies just kind of came into my head. And I do kind of regret how dark they came out, because I wanted the texture to be a bit, I don't know, more textury and less dark. But I think they come across all right. They are very small. It's very difficult to get a whole lot of texture in a small area with pens. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that came about. They're great little characters I would like to revisit in the future. And clearly I still had kind of voodoo baby, scarecrow baby on my mind. And he's got a little jumping spider on his back as well. So that's how this guy came about. It's originally, I think, the scarecrow babies looked more like my voodoo babies in their initial construction, and then they ended up with kind of their little pointy hoods on, a bit oogie boogie-ish, I guess, and they kind of evolved from there. But I still wanted to do at least one voodoo baby in my book. So there he is, with his big old stitches everywhere, his little jumping spider friend. And off the back of the other salamander that I drew, I wanted to do kind of a fairy salamander. And this salamander is in a picture with violets. Violets are my favorite of all flowers, kind of wild violets. I grew up in Rhode Island, United States, and it is actually the state flower of Rhode Island as well. So there you have it. Violets and a dragon salamander with beautiful toes. This little guy with his, or I think it's definitely a her mischievous little face. She's kind of just kind of an idea that I've thrown around of a moss lurker. I've thrown it around for a few years, and I drew on some different ways, but usually they have a shell. This one ended up looking quite turtle or tortoise-ish. But yeah, basically the shell, the big eyes, and all sorts of stuff growing out so they can camouflage. Cute little fantasy critter with their big old nails as well. This was another one of the micro sculpture inspired drawings, and it is a wasp. Specifically, it was modeled after the potter wasp on the website. And this was an interesting one to do with the texture as well. I know that you probably will not have noticed until I pointed out, but this leg is in a completely wrong position to where it should be, which really irritates me, but I didn't realize what I'd done until the ink was down, and then it was permanent. So like I said, probably wouldn't have noticed until I pointed it out, but now you can't unsee it, can you? And these flowers here are blutes. They are another wildflower that grows in Rhode Island, and I was feeling nostalgic, and besides violets, these were my favorite all growing up. They just grow in these carpets of tiny flowers, and they have such thin, beautiful stems, and they only grow about that high, and just complete beautiful carpets of tiny flowers. They've got 4 petals, and they're quite white with blue tips on the petals and yellow in the middle, but the intensity of the blue varies between, I guess, areas, because the genetics can only carry so far, can they? So, yes, the ones of my childhood were very pale white with tiny bit of blue and yellow in the center. And of course, don't get those in Scotland. I do miss them. And this is the second to the last one. We've almost made it, day 30. And this is a little illustration I made after a book that my daughter has that she loves. I don't remember what it's even called, the book itself, but she calls it Baby Owls. And it's about 3 owl babies, Sarah and Percy and Bill, who live in a nest with their owl mother. And then their mother goes away to get some food, and they all panic that she'll never come back, but then she does come back because she loves them very much. The end. And day 31. It's just a little wreath. And of course, my little stag boo, which I usually pop into various bits of art. And I thought, oh, I haven't even done one in all of October, so I'll make him on the last day. With the wreath and acorns, oak leaves, and a little spider. This was inspired because my sister has been making some lovely fake flower wreaths recently. And I thought, oh, I'd like to draw a wreath. And that's what came out of me. So anyway, that's the end of the book. There it is, all done. Inktober 2020, and all of its bling on the outside and simplicity on the inside. So I hope that you enjoyed having a look, and if you stuck around for the whole thing, you're a trooper. See you later.